Welcome to The Connection Code, a podcast where we explore the relationships that make your life and work just a little bit better. I'm Rachel Gillman Rischall. I'm the creator of 3PR, a PR firm focused on better for you food brands. But my secret obsession, or maybe not so secret at this point, is connecting people. I really, really love being a bridge between two people who should know each other. And that's a big topic that we'll delve into.
And I'm Jeana Cohen. I'm the founder of A Sweat Life. I'm working on something else at the moment, but I have dedicated my life and career in the past 13 years really to friendship. I'm pretty obsessed with friends. And we are going to start every episode with a big question. Today, I came with the question. Next week, you'll hear from Rachel. But my question is, Rachel, how do you know when you're not just friends with someone, but close friends?
You know what this made me think of just now?
Tell me.
It's like when you're asking yourself, are we dating or are we boyfriend, girlfriend? And it's almost
Put a
like
label on it.
Yes, it's almost like you're crossing this invisible threshold and just something feels different. And so to answer the question of how you know that you're a good friend versus just a friend, I think there's two things. One is that you know something formative about their childhood. Maybe it's a trauma. Maybe it's a great anecdote or memory that's really something they hold close to the vest, but like they've told you in confidence. You just feel like even if you weren't part of their past, they have shared that history with you and you have been brought into something that's really meaningful to them. And I think once you know about someone's childhood, it's an invitation to be a better friend.
For sure.
And then my second thought of when you know you're a good friend is if you feel like you can inconvenience the person with kind of a big ask, but it's okay that they will say yes and not hold it against you. And that could be a last minute ride to the airport, or I knew I had a good friend when I had a sick kid and my husband was out of town. And I said, could you please go to Walgreens for me at 6 p.m. on a Friday and pick up a prescription? I just think you don't want to have to ask it, but you know this person is going to hear you and do their best to show up because they care. And you know that you would do the same for them. And that rises to the level of a good friendship.
Absolutely. I'm going to yes and your two because I absolutely agree with them. They've given you their history book. You're able to inconvenience them. And I think you also at a certain point have a little shared history too.
Yes.
So you're racking up those friendship hours. You're doing things together and making new memories. So you have that, just to your point, like you have that history. At least you've shared it in the past, or you have the book, and then you're making new memories. There's a little math to it too.
I love this.
Yeah.
Your hours. Yes. Talk about your hours.
The hours. So there's a little science that goes to show, and I can link to this in the show notes, that it takes 50 hours to go from basically like knowing someone to be an acquaintance, 100 hours or 99 hours to go to a friend, and then 200 hours to be someone's good friend. And that's, as we've talked about, that's why trips are so good for friendship, because you're just racking up the hours. And then the ability to capital S share with someone, to share something maybe that's not going well in your life, something that makes you feel really vulnerable, and you know that that person is safe.
Yes.
Because there are sometimes where you go into a situation and you capital S share, and then you just hit a brick wall, and you're like, oh no, we're not there.
Have you ever experienced that where you shared something deeply personal and it did not land with the other person in a way that you felt supported, and then they did not share back?
Oh, that I'm sharing and getting supported, but not getting any new information.
Actually, I guess it's a split question.
Yeah.
If you shared and they were not supportive.
Yeah.
Or you shared, but no reciprocal vulnerability happened.
Yes. Okay, so would you like me to be vulnerable right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to giggle and joke with you about it, but then I'm going to like really capitalize. So I am a survivor of sexual assault. And that comes up now and again. It's been a long time and I've processed it, but it comes up now and again in conversation. And you start, and Rachel's giving me a look right now, like she's supporting me and being a very good friend. You should just know. But it comes up in conversation sometimes, and you learn to sort of discern who is a safe human and who is an unsafe human. So that's kind of my gate. But every once in a while, you'll be surprised by someone being like extraordinarily safe or extraordinarily like, oh God, we don't talk about that here. So that's sort of in my life where I've seen it the most. Everything else kind of pales in comparison to that. And to the other question of if you share and nothing is reciprocated, yes, but I think that there is a difference. You know, sometimes you need someone to listen and hold space, and sometimes you need someone to be right there with you. And I think it's a difference of like knowing the person in the conversation. Because have you ever had a conversation with someone and you just want them to listen about I think it comes up a lot with friends who are going through something really hard and someone tries to meet them where they are and it's not necessarily like the same and they get frustrated. That hasn't happened necessarily to me, but I've seen it happen to loved ones who are going through things like cancer or whatever. Oh my God, I just turned this so dark and deep.
No. And first of all, thank you for capital S sharing. You had shared that with me, which helped me feel like we were on the path to greater friendship, that you felt safe telling me about that.
I figured I had shared it with you because I knew we were capital S safe.
Yes. And I was really touched that you felt like you could open up and say that with me. And what a litmus test. Like if somebody doesn't make you feel good when you share something so vulnerable and so personal and so raw, I would know too, then that's a friend material person, or that is somebody I'm just going to move to the left.
Yep. Take out of my contacts.
Yes, take out of your... well, or just know who they are and what the boundary is then. Yep. I think I've had to be a recovering version of the person you described, where somebody just wants a listening ear.
Yeah.
And I want so badly to say I understand and offer up something that shows I understand. Mm-hmm. But in doing so, I think it does backfire. Not everybody needs a comparable or you get it too because XYZ happened. Sometimes they just need to let their shit out, and you have to be there with open arms and be like, I'm catching it. I'm holding it. I'm here for you. Keep going. Like, it's like I'm holding your hair back while you're vomiting. This is just your moment to let it all go.
Puke.
Well, just, we're really getting into all of the different aspects. But I think there's a moment when people are saying, I'm going through this. Can you relate? And there's moments where you simply need, almost from like a visceral level, to just unload.
Yeah.
This is happening. It's hard. I'm in it. I'm overwhelmed. It's sort of like a physical catharsis to just let it out. Mm-hmm. And the best thing a friend can do is say, I'm here to listen.
And I think at a certain point in your friendship, you know to ask too. Because that's not fair either, because no one really knows to ask. I think those of us who have been through like therapy or read relationship books or like multiple like how do you be a good friend articles, you know, at a certain point like you ask at that juncture like, what do you need from me? Because some people like you don't know in your bones until someone tells you, you know, like you can guess up to a certain point. So like I also am a recovering version of that person. I think it might be because we're both from Minnesota. There might be some version of that just like lives in the lakes there, who knows? But at this point, like if someone starts, I love that we've both just adopted capital S share as like as being vulnerable. But if someone starts to capital S share with me and I'm like, whoa, what do they need? I usually, if I'm with it enough and I'm in my body, I can ask like, do you need me to just listen? Do you want me to be mad with you? Or do you want me to relate? And then they can answer the question. I can give them what they need.
Yes. You actually just brought me back to a really good friend memory, and I feel like I'd like to credit this friend.
Mm-hmm.
How it came up is I was on a trip for my cousin's bachelorette, and we were playing the Pretty Smart game, my friend Danielle's card game.
Yeah.
And there was a question prompt about how a friend has really shown up for you. And I flashed back to senior year of college when I was going through something, and I had this roommate, Amy, who I'm still good friends with today, and she's a very loyal friend, like the kind of friend that no matter what, like even if you're at fault, she would just jump in and defend you.
Yeah.
Like just like what they call like your ride or die friend who just really believes in you and like, stands by your side. And I was going through this really, really hard thing. And I remember one night just like coming home from the bar with her and I couldn't stop crying. I was just devastated. Mm-hmm. My heart was broken. Mm-hmm. And she not only physically walked with me and like kept me company all the way home, but then she started crying uncontrollably because she felt so badly for the pain I was in. And I couldn't articulate it in the moment, but I sat with it afterwards and I thought, what a beautiful friend thing to do, to say, I see your pain. I feel your pain. I'm in your pain. I'm going to cry all the way home with you because I care so much and I hate to see you in this state. And
I feel like you're going to cry right now.
I know.
And I did cry watching you almost cry.
And Amy, I mean, that was over 20 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm not a spring chicken and college was many years ago. But that's the kind of person Amy is she's a deeply, deeply loyal friend. And I've never forgotten that in that moment, her heart was with me. She really wanted me to feel supported. And I think it sort of overcame her too. So I think there's different ways we can show up as a good friend. Sometimes it's expressing and mirroring emotion. Sometimes it's just listening. Sometimes it's offering really heartfelt advice. Sometimes it's playing devil's advocate if the person really needs to hear a different perspective. But I like your way of doing it, which is to ask. I mean, even with my sister, who is my closest friend, sometimes I will say, do you want me to just agree with you? Do you want me to just shut up and listen? Do you want some advice? Because then we can proceed and have a more productive engagement or conversation or whatnot if I know where she wants me to sit.
Yep. Yeah. Honestly, so like the whole time you were talking about Amy, one, I was listening because Amy sounds fantastic.
Yes.
And two, I would hope that all of us at some point in our life have had like an Amy to lean on. I definitely did. Also going through a heartbreak during my senior year of college. Her name is Mary Claire. Mary Claire, you should know. She's still in my life, also fiercely loyal.
I do know a Mary Claire in Minnesota. I wonder if it's the same person.
Oh, so I know Mary Claire from Minnesota too. This Mary Claire, these are the Catholic women of the Midwest. This Mary Claire is from Illinois.
Okay, different Mary Claire, but I only know good ones.
Me too, honestly.
Yes.
Funny Mary Claires, good Mary Claires. Well, so I think...
But you were saying your Mary Claire did that for you.
Absolutely did that for me. Like, I remember weeping senior year over some idiot, and that's not fair. In the moment, he was the love of my life. Now I can look back on it and say he was some idiot. But in that moment, she was able to connect with me, to see it, and also be like, but you're so sad, and look me in the eye and be like, but he makes you so sad, and offer me sort of an alternative view of what I was going through, instead of just me saying like, I am heartbroken and my life is over because of this person. And she was sort of like, but can you see like what he's doing to you? And that changed my perspective completely, to have the voice of my friend who I trusted implicitly telling me like, but actually, do you see? Do you see?
And maybe that also is the mark of a good friend. Yeah. Going back to your original point, is you're good friends when that person has reached a point where they can see you with a clearer lens or perspective that you might not sometimes have on yourself. Like they know you enough to say, actually, this job loss or this work frustration or this thing in your marriage or with your kids isn't as bad as you think, or I see it this way. They've sort of gained the authority on your life from enough time together and your friendship growing that they can be of value and weigh in. Yeah. Whereas just like a regular friend might be able to listen and be like, oh, that's hard, or that sucks, or I'm sorry. But they are not at a level where they can really guide you.
Yeah. Like an okay friend, like a newish friend would be like, it sounds like your husband's an idiot. And a best friend would be like, well, are you being fair to him?
Yes.
Because they would know both of you and understand like your quirks at that point.
Yes.
And the answer is somewhere in between. You know? Wait, should we talk about show and tell?
Yes.
I feel like we could talk about this all day. And we're going to, sort of. Because my show and tell is related. This is not a new article, but it did reemerge in my feed, which I love for us. But it is the 36 Questions That Lead to Love, which was a modern love article published by the New York Times, which actually puts into action a study, which is the experimental, I love this title, but the experimental generation and interpersonal closeness, a procedure and some preliminary findings. God, I love science. And what that study did was pair people up based on like mutual shared interests, and then give them questions to ask each other to test whether or not the idea of shared and increasing vulnerability would lead to closeness. Now,
my working theory is yes.
Absolutely. Based on our year and some change friendship, I would say shared and reciprocal closeness or vulnerability has led to closeness. with us.
Absolutely. I don't know how two people couldn't get at least nominally closer through shared disclosure. Mm-hmm. You tell me things about your life that are important and personal, and I tell you things about my life that are important and personal, and we receive them well. We're going to feel closer because now I know you better and you know me better, and I'd like to think that fosters trust.
And when you trust someone, like, you can also go to them for important things in your life. Like, I know at this point, like, I could ask you for advice.
You can inconvenience me.
I can inconvenience you for sure.
Yes.
I feel like we're experimenting on each other, but that's delightful to me. Okay, so one finding of the study. Are you ready for me to read?
Yes.
Okay. One key pattern associated with the development of a close relationship among peers is sustained, escalating, reciprocal, personal self-disclosure. Meaning, like, I share, you share.
The sharing goes up.
Exactly. I share a little bit more, you share a little bit more. It's like a pot getting a little hotter, but you don't notice the temperatures going up.
Yes.
And eventually, you don't boil, but you do get closer.
This is the weirdest analogy, but it's almost like strip poker.
Yes.
And then you're all in.
And then you're all in. And everybody's naked. It's fine. It's
and
fine.
Then there's so much vulnerability.
You're
emotionally naked.
Okay. One other really interesting part of the experiment was the fact that participants were pre-selected based on, like, agreement in attitude. So it was basically like, we've talked about the 5 things that go into friendship. The first one being, like, a shared interest. Anything at all. So this study basically aligned with that. Like, they had an attitude agreement. So they knew those two people were sort of like on an even playing field before coming in, which I love because they realized, like, you can't make two people who are diametrically different or opposed to one another's views connect that way. It might take a little extra work.
So the experiment essentially says these people feel compatible enough on paper to conduct the experiment.
Yes.
Let's see how it goes.
Yes, okay. Exactly, which I'm obsessed with. And then finally, they were told that the intention of the experiment was to build closeness. So the two people were given a job. Like, your job is to get closer. And so because they had that shared alignment, they agreed to the job, they got closer. So
isn't there a name for is it a self-fulfilling prophecy or something where you tell the people participating what success looks like so they're both motivated to achieve it? Like, they've primed them as well as possible.
They've primed them, for sure. I think self-fulfilling prophecy sounds great for this.
Sure.
And that's what we're going to pick. But I also think it goes back to the point that we've made about telling someone that you want to be their friend.
Yes.
Because then it primes them, like, oh, that's why you're asking me to coffee. Oh, that's why we're sitting at this table in this clean white room doing an experiment. So then they know. But let's dive into the questions. Okay, do you think, before we get into the questions,
so Rachel, we're going to do this experiment with each other.
Yes.
But not all 36.
Not all 36, because that would be ridiculous.
Yes.
So we'll make sure that we're not answering questions that'll tell too much about our personal life. We can pass. I think the ground rules are that we can pass. We don't have to share anything about our personal lives that would insult our loved ones, our family, or would just tell too much that we're not ready to share. Okay. So we can pass on a question. But before, do you agree to this?
Yes,
would you like to?
Yes.
Okay, great. Before we do the 36 questions, I want to know, do you feel like vulnerability comes naturally to you?
To a fault.
Mm.
Yes. I don't know that this is the case for many people, but for me, I just am very prone to sharing. I don't know that it's problematic at this life stage, but I feel more like an open book than the opposite. And I really love to connect with people and share stories. And for instance, my sister and I were just on a vacation until yesterday. And we were at this resort for 4 days, and it was more boutique and small. Mm-hmm. So you started to see the same people. And I feel like my default personality on these vacations is aggressively friendly.
Yeah.
And so by the end of the trip, we kind of had a lay of the land. We knew who all the groups were. Like, social media handles were exchanged, restaurant recs were going back and forth. We knew this one family's daughter's bat mitzvah plans next year. Names were a bare minimum.
Yeah.
It's just how I like to be, is if we're going to just lay around this pool together, why aren't we talking?
Why aren't we friends yet?
And so, and with the staff too, they had like the warmest, nicest staff. So we were on first name basis.
What was this resort?
It's called Eterio Auberge.
Sounds amazing.
It translates to heaven.
Yeah.
It was. It was
And
honestly
it's
one of the
heaven.
most special places I've ever stayed. It was truly wonderful, and the people all around were so nice. But my sister and I laugh because we tend to do this on vacation. We really like to meet new people, and we start with the assumption that it's going to be well received.
Yeah, yeah.
So it doesn't prevent us from engaging in conversation because we don't feel fearful that it will be rejected. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I feel like the vulnerability is underscored by a feeling of, let's go for it. Like,
What do you
what's
have to
the worst
lose?
that's going to
Yeah.
happen? And I think people inherently don't mind a little friendly small talk, and then it can snowball from there. So I live in a place, I think, of ongoing vulnerability and am really stymied when I meet people who are not comfortable sharing, because that to me feels so foreign.
Yeah, or if someone only wants to talk about, I don't know how to put this besides like achievements. You know, like there are feelings, there are achievements, there are history stories from your life. Like there's more to just like what you do on a day-to-day basis and why everyone thinks you're great. You know, it's like there are some, and
Oh, yeah.
that's one level of like of sharing where it's almost like an interview where you meet someone and they tell you all about themselves. And that's wonderful, and I'm glad that you can do that. However, how do you feel? How do you feel today? What was it like for you to get that award? What do you remember about that? Like, whose eyes did you look at first? You know, like, there's just so much more to those moments.
Yes.
Ugh, okay.
I would rather know, like, tell me about the first formative relationship of your adolescent years. What's your relationship with your parents? Like,
Yeah.
how do you feel your self-esteem sits now versus 10 years ago?
Yeah.
What's the dream in terms of your future self? Like, how would you describe your legacy if this was it? What do you think happens after you die? Like,
What's the title of your book?
these are the things I would love. This is why my husband is like, a lot of questions, Rachel. He's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But I was even in a dinner club for a while called No Small Talk, which I love because everybody's like so tired of like pleasantries and like just the sort of the banter of like, how's work, how's this, how's that. And it was so fun to just be like, let's only talk about like really juicy things.
One big topic.
Yes.
Did you start that dinner club?
I may have played a catalyst role in it.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So you are comfortable with being vulnerable. I am comfortable with being vulnerable as well. I would also say I'm a textbook oversharer too. I think sometimes I'll be in the elevator with someone and I will get to my floor and I will realize that I have just told them every supplement my dog is on in like 45 seconds. And
This is why we bonded.
yeah. And then it's time to go. And I don't mind feeling like I'm out on a ledge because I have like camp counselor sort of in my DNA.
Yes.
And I think you do too, where you just don't care. Maybe I would call it something different. I would call it, you're a party host. More like you're like the host at the door that people want to bring flowers to, and I'm the camp counselor who doesn't care if I'm a fool. Like the court jester.
I don't know if I agree with this assessment, but I think we just want people to feel cared for.
Absolutely.
And know that they have an interested party.
Yes. You definitely always have snacks, though.
Always snacks.
Like, for real. Okay, so do you want to answer some of these questions?
Yes.
Okay, and I have to answer them too.
Do we each pick one from a set?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's a really important point. Okay, so this set of questions is 36, to refresh, it's 36 questions that lead to love. They are in 3 sets of 12. Each set has increasing vulnerability sort of ascribed to them.
Okay.
Like set 1 is sort of table stakes vulnerability. Set 2 gets a little deeper. Set 3, what do we share? What do we have in common? Why are we going to continue being friends afterwards? Sort of thing. So I was thinking maybe we do one from each set.
Yes.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3 for each of us. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay. Pick 1 to 12.
3.
Okay, 3. I actually love this one for you. Okay, 3. Rachel, before making a telephone call, do you ever rehearse what you're going to say and why? And because it's the New York Times, I want you to know that it's going to say, and I just turned it to gonna.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So when I started my PR career, one of the most uncomfortable things I had to do was practice making phone calls because they didn't think at 22 that you should call the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Chicago Tribune. So I had to call my mentor and friend Russin, who is in another cubicle, and practice pitching him.
Yes.
So just like the most uncomfortable because it's a new skill set, and somebody I report to and who's more senior than me is gauging my performance. So even though I hated that exercise, what it did is help me think about when you pick up a phone, what's the intention behind it? And it's interesting now because I don't feel like people call nearly the way they did, obviously. So when you're calling somebody, it's usually very inner circle, right? Or it's a business call. So I think when the call is somebody that's not inner circle and there's something somewhat important attached, I do try to take a moment to think, what's the intention of this phone call? What am I trying to put out there? What would I like to get back? And I, honest to God, believe in the incredibly cliched advice that smile, they'll hear it in your voice. So I smile maniacally on my end because I do think that facial expression and that sort of like attempted joy and connection travels through.
It translates 100%. And even on Zoom. Like, obviously on Zoom because they can see your face.
Yes.
Ugh. I'm not going to answer the question because it was yours.
Okay, now you pick one.
Okay, I choose... So I want you to know that I didn't peek and I totally forgot.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to say 8.
Oh, name 3 things you and your partner appear to have in common.
Oh, okay. I feel like Justin would be fine with this. Appear, so on the outside looking in. Well, I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
So we find similar things silly. Like we're able to kind of like have this lightness and this silliness about the world. And if you were to just see us out in the world, you would think that we are very silly and unserious all of the time, which is not necessarily true because we also have very deep conversations about how we're thinking, how we see the world, how we're feeling. But we also have that like that silliness that kind of exists out in the world. 2, we have fairly similar coloring.
An aesthetic similarity. Okay.
Similar aesthetic.
You look like you go together.
Yeah, we go together. Although now when we first met, so he has a shaved head now, but when we first met, he was a blonde gentleman with hair, flowing locks. But now he's a shaved headed gentleman, which I love. And then 3 appear to have in common. I'll say our style is sort of streetwear.
And you do both have really striking blue eyes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
So when you've met him, his change color, which is lovely. So he has, we'll air quote around this, hazel eyes on his driver's license.
Oh, but you are true blue.
I'm true, but mine go from green to blue, but we meet in the middle sometimes and we'll both have green. We love a green eye.
Silly streetwear coloring.
Yes. Silly streetwear coloring.
I like it.
We have much more in common, but you know. Are you ready to go a little deeper?
I think so.
Okay, questions 13 to 24. What's your number?
22.
Okay. I like that number.
It's my husband's favorite
number.
Okay. I was like, what am I picking here? Ruben's favorite number.
Alternate sharing something you consider a positive characteristic of your... No. Oh, of me. I'm your partner. Okay. Alternate sharing something you consider a positive characteristic of your partner. Share a total of 5 items. Okay, so this is for both of us. So we can go back and forth. Do you like that?
5 things about you that I think are great.
And I'll say 5 things about you that I think are great. And we'll alternate going back. This is easy.
Yes, but how would people who didn't know each other do this?
So in the experiment, what they essentially had to do was go based on all of the questions that came before it. So if we had gotten here, if we had gotten to question 22, we would have had 21 questions of information at that point.
Okay. And
visually everything in front of us. So if I had to guess, if I wasn't listening, I could have said like, you have wonderful hair. you are very put together. Those sorts of things.
Thank you. Lies, but I appreciate it.
Disagree. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to start with the thing about you.
Okay.
Okay, you have magnetic energy.
Oh, that's really
like,
nice.
I love high energy people, and you have that incredible spark, and just, you walk into a space and your presence is immediately felt.
Oh, that's really nice. I'm going to go on the same, but I think you bring the best out of everybody.
Aww.
So, like, even, like, strangers at Miraval were like, oh, you're so great to be here. And you just bring out, like, a happiness. Okay. Are we going to get through this without crying? Impossible.
Yeah, also, I'm like, is this podcast just, like, mutual compliments, which I'm not mad about.
Compliment me.
Okay. You're a big idea person. You make shit happen. You created a sweat life. You have your next big venture. I really believe that people don't get inspired by small ideas. You have to take your moonshots. And you are somebody who not only comes up with the ideas, but then actually executes them, which I find deeply inspiring.
Okay, you have a sterling reputation. You're like, what's coming next?
I had no idea.
Yeah. I've spoken to a lot of people about you because I love you. And so every person your name has ever come up with, whether I know them very well or I know them just a little, they're always like, oh my God, do you know Rachel? She's so wonderful.
Oh, I'm going to float with that one for like a month. That is a really, really nice thing to hear.
I'm going to put it in an art for your wall.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'll take it down to the surface. We talked about your eyes. You have a mane, like amazing hair. I feel like I say it every time I see you, so it's probably repetitive, but like I love a good bouncy head of hair and you have it.
Thank you so much. I do work very hard on this hair. Actually, a boyfriend broke up with me once and then like 5 days later, you know how sometimes they give you like exploding insults that they mean to like just really mess with you down the line?
God.
His was, you spend too much on your hair. And
Not time, but money. Oh,
and
that's so judgy.
I know. It was like one of those things where in the moment I was like, okay. And I do think about it all the time, but it's more like, you had no idea what I was capable of.
Also, fuck you. Like, it's my head.
It's my head. I spend more now, and it looks even better. Okay.
Well, it's an investment.
Thank you.
Yes.
I do like hair. Okay. There's a lot about you that I love. Okay, let's say...
We can cap it at 3. You don't have to... Like, 5 might be a lot of things.
No, I think we can come up with it. You are very strong. I've been next to you in a fitness class, and you have done all of the push-ups on your toes. You have stuck with it until the rest break. You are incredibly strong.
Thank you.
Physically and emotionally, but I'm just saying physically for now.
Thank you. Not that this comes as any surprise considering the theme of our podcast, but I do feel like you're very innately generous with introductions. For instance, when we were at Midtown and sometimes people say hi to somebody and then they don't do the thing where they bring the person over and make a proper introduction so the two people can figure out if there's value in their potential relationship. Do you know what I mean? It's an act of service. Not like, hi, Richard, good to see you. But like, Richard, meet Rachel. Richard used to run Midtown. Who I now see Richard all the time.
I love Richard.
But this is a case in point where you could have just had your own Jeana interaction and I could have just sat there and checked my phone. But instead, you're like, Richard, you should meet Rachel. This is what she does. This is what Richard does. That is something a lot of people don't think to do, but it's how connections are fostered. So you are always making sure good people can meet each other, and then you sort of sprinkle some fairy dust on it to make sure it takes off.
Thank you for saying that. I do actually value that about myself, too. Okay, for you, you ask incredibly good questions. And they're not always, like, the normal question that you would think to ask in that moment. But it's like you... Not like normal air quotes. It's more like you get a little deeper. You ask something a little more meaningful than most people would think to ask in most instances. We have one left. We're doing so well.
I'm going to make a confession. I appreciate that compliment a lot because going back in time for a second, when I was 16, I was on a 6-week trip to Israel with a bunch of kids from all over the country. And like, speaking of friendship going quickly, you're doing everything together for a month and a half.
Yeah.
And at the end of the 6 weeks, you all feel very bonded and you're sort of irritated with each other, but like you're connected and you're 16. And we did superlatives. And one of the superlatives I got was most likely to ask a question.
Oh, that's great.
But I felt like it wasn't totally a compliment because every tour we went on and every time there was a speaker, I would raise my hand and I'd be like, I have a question. Like I wanted to know things, and people eventually, I think, were a little sick of me asking questions. And so it was an accurate superlative, but it didn't feel like it was meant as something that I should feel amazing about. It felt more like maybe I should be a little self-conscious about my propensity to ask a question. And yet, many years later, I think one of the things that has actually been a foundation of my career is the ability to ask a lot of questions and to be genuinely interested in the responses. So I share that only to say that sometimes the things that when you're younger you can feel self-conscious about can end up sort of morphing and evolving and being a superpower or a wonderful asset in your adulthood.
Yeah, I got one of those in high school too. I also think like when you have a big, bold personality and you don't necessarily care what other people think at that age, it's deeply uncomfortable for others too.
Ooh.
And I think the person who asks questions and is unabashedly curious at that age is a lot of times, especially if you're a woman, reminded that you should be quiet and small and keep to yourself.
And I was so small. There's a lot to say. I did. The other superlative that I got was most likely to be president. So I felt like maybe it balanced out a little bit. So I think a lot of growth occurs. Okay. I'm going to give you one more good compliment.
Okay.
I enjoy working out, but I definitely push myself to do it. I don't know that I know anybody who takes such joy in trying all the new classes, experimenting with all the workouts. Every time we get together, fitness somehow is bookending the experience for you. I feel like you're somebody who moves their body for pleasure as opposed to obligation.
That is absolutely true. Thank you for noticing that. It also is because I get bored so easily. so I have to
That's fair.
Add in the spice. Okay, my fifth one about you is you are the kind of person who anyone could travel with.
Oh.
Which I think is a very high compliment because there are some people who you would not necessarily want to travel with. You are the kind of person that people want to travel with.
But only if they want to ask a lot of questions and talk to everybody else in the property.
They would love that, honestly. Oh my God. Okay, we have one more set of questions.
Oh,
are you ready to get very deep?
Yes.
Okay. 20. Okay, am I right? 25. Okay, I can do this. 25 to 36. What's your number?
I feel like the bold move is to say 36.
Okay. Are you ready to share a personal problem with me to work through it?
Ooh.
I'll read you the question and you can decide if you want to pass or do it. Share a personal problem and ask your partner's advice on how he or she might handle it. Also, ask your partner to reflect back to you how you seem to be feeling about the problem you have chosen. Ooh, it's couples therapy.
Oh. Okay. I'm trying to think of how to make this problem succinct.
Mm-hmm.
So, in adult therapy, which I'm not currently in,
okay,
but only because this lovely therapist is unavailable, and I think therapy is such a fabulous tool that everybody should engage in to understand themselves.
Mine's on maternity leave. It's awful.
Yes. Well,
I mean, good for her. I'm happy she's on maternity leave.
Of course. But like you miss your person.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll back into this for a second. There was a great Oprah thing on her podcast about as you get older, you can imagine your life as a stream and you want flow. You want the water to just move unencumbered. But the problem is, as life goes on, we accumulate rocks. And rocks are those unresolved issues. And they start to block the stream. And then your water has to work around them. Mm-hmm. And the older you get and the less you resolve, the more rocks you have in your stream and the less you flow. So the best work you can do in adulthood,
God bless
is to remove the rocks. Mm-hmm. Free yourself from the issues. Let the water flow. So when I started doing the therapy a couple years ago, I was like, everybody has rocks. I know I have rocks. I want to remove as many as possible. Mm-hmm. And one of the rocks that has been really tricky for me has been the double-edged sword of anxiety and ambition.
My God, yes.
Right? So if a voice in my head says, you need to work harder because if you don't, your clients might want to work with somebody else, or you won't get this media placement, or this thing won't come to fruition. Hustle, work harder, like don't let up on it. It fuels me and I drive harder and I do the thing and then I get it. Mm-hmm. But the downside of that is then there's always another thing that you should be doing. So it's like you're a hamster on a wheel and it's like, okay, as soon as I get the Today Show, I'll feel like I can relax. Well, I got the Today Show for this client, but I didn't get it for that client. Okay, I had the journal piece, but then it's been 3 months and what do I have to show for it? I'm still on retainer. And so you can really drive yourself crazy thinking you're only as good as the last thing you delivered. Mm-hmm. But in the therapy, the trouble was, I'm like, if I let go of the anxiety, do I lose my ambition? How do I make sure that I don't become complacent or stop trying if I'm not scared? If I'm not nervous about disappointing people, if I'm not fearful of failure, what will keep me moving towards a successful outcome? And so the work wasn't done. It was a hard thing because she was telling me, you have to want to let it go. And right now you're still holding on to it. So it's sort of this complex, not totally productive relationship between the two. But for a long time, I think I believed that my fear of failure has been the fuel for success, when the healthy thing would probably be to pursue success for the sake of doing good work.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, reflecting back, what I'm hearing is that...
Does this ring a bell?
Yep. Is that in your mind, you have linked anxiety and achievement. And ambition. I love that you use the word ambition because we shouldn't let that go as women. And what I'm hearing is you want to let go of the anxiety and hold on to the ambition, but you're wondering how to do it.
Yes.
My question to you is, why do they have to be two sides of the same sword? Why does your ambition need to be linked to your anxiety? Can they just be separate?
I mean, I would love to wave a wand at the anxiety and say, be gone.
Be gone.
But I think in a way it's what keeps me on task.
And it's almost like what you're looking for is a new motivation that's not fear-based.
Yes. I would, exactly. How can you have a really healthy source of motivation that does not incorporate fear?
Honestly, I feel like what you're describing, I've been through too. I'm not going to put myself on you, but what I am going to ask you...
I am asking for advice.
Okay,
so the advice is welcome.
So I'll give you.
Yes.
So I used to describe it as the mountaintop phenomenon. It's exactly like what you're talking about, where I would achieve the thing I was going after, and instead of being like, wow, look how far I've come, I would say like, oh, fuck, look how far I could fall. Which is so unfair.
Whereas what I would look at is, what's the next mountaintop?
What's the next mountaintop? Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it's kind of similar, except I was looking at it like, who's going to knock me off?
Oh.
You know, like, who's going to knock me off? So it's almost like you need to think of, maybe, I like to think of things in lists of 10. So maybe think of like 10 things that are better motivators than fear for you. Like, is it like a time-based system? Is a deadline a better motivator for you than fear? Is a little treat a better motivator for you than fear? Is an award a better motivator for you than fear? So you could think about like how you could maybe leverage all the incredible work you're doing and win an award. So that instead of working towards like not feeling so anxious, you're working towards achieving this thing. But I think we have to think of what the thing is.
Yeah, and also the role validation plays, because I think that gets cloudy too, is am I doing things to feel validated?
Yeah.
And really, PR in so many ways is an ironic choice, because it's a people-pleasing service where you do need to constantly deliver things that make people feel as though it's worth investing in you and what your product is.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say, as I share this problem, I don't feel like I'm in the worst of it right now. I'm able to share it and feel comfortable because I feel like I've gained some ground, but it's there. And I think, honestly, it's there for a lot of people who are achievement-oriented, who are running their own business, or who are really driving in their career. I don't think I'm unique in that relationship of being worried about letting yourself down or other people down and using that to fuel yourself working harder to ensure that doesn't happen. But I know it's kind of a toxic relationship and ultimately not the best way to proceed. So that's my answer to number 36.
Oh my God. And it's almost like we could talk about this all day, but I do feel like, okay, 36 requires a lot of time. Okay, I picked 25, so we don't have to talk about 36 anymore for you.
Okay, let me find 25. How many papers do we have here? Okay. Oh.
I went with the top of it.
The top of it. Okay. So you are going to make 3 true, quote, we statements each. Okay, for instance, we are both in this room feeling, and then you would fill in the blank.
Okay. Oh, okay, so we are both in this room feeling a little bit anxious about sharing. Yeah?
Yeah.
You agree? Okay, good. What about you?
We are both in this room working on our friendship, even as we're creating something together that we're not sure how it'll turn out.
Yes, I like it. We are both in this room invested in relationships.
Yes. We are both in this room but you're not 40 yet.
That's all right. I'm 39. You could
Okay.
put me there. I've been referring to myself as in my 40s.
Okay, if you're saying you're in your 40s, I think we're both in this room in this unique stage of life as almost 40 in the 40s, which I think requires a slightly different lens on life at large.
Yes.
It feels like it's a new era.
Yes, agree. We are both in this room invested in health, both mind, body, and soul.
Yes. We are both in this room as really avid readers who like to trade recommendations.
We are
I had to reach for a third one.
Yes. No, I
Yes.
like that. I honestly feel like a reach for the third is no big deal. Okay, Rachel, do you feel more connected?
Yes. But I think the beauty of a relationship like ours, or people that I feel connected to, is that I'm not surprised when we go deep. It's not unusual to do big shares. It actually feels really comforting and familiar. It's when people don't want to share for me that I actually feel a little stuck.
And I also think it could be a litmus if you have, maybe if you take, for the listeners, all of you, if you take the 36 questions that lead to love, and you think about like who I would feel comfortable doing this with and who I wouldn't feel comfortable doing this with, that also could be a litmus test too.
And Ruben doesn't know this yet, but we're going to do this on Friday.
Yes! Okay, good. Okay, good. I'll bring Justin into it too. All right, should we have a connection conversation to close this out?
Sure.
So we are early in the show, and we eventually would love to create an opportunity for the listener to connect with one another. But before we get there, I want to know, and I know we've talked about attitudes and being connection, but being connected, but I want to know what you think makes a good matchup. If you were going to matchmake two potential friends, what would make them good friends?
Okay. As I was telling you, I am really bad at romantic matchups, but much better at friend ones. And I think it's sort of twofold. There's an energy about it. Like, what is that person's vibe and way of being and dynamic? And does it feel like it would just meld well with somebody else's? Or you could try to be practical and say, they work in a similar profession. They both have this hobby. They love this kind of workout class. They both are avid readers. They both grew up in this place. Like, look for some baseline things that could be a good foundation. But I do think it's the former more. It's sort of like the spirit and that like unnameable quality about them where you're like, the way they make me feel and the energy they bring into a room feels like it pairs really well with this other person who makes me feel that thing too. And so that, I believe, is sort of the marker or the way that you can determine a good friend match.
I totally agree with you. Because I think like there's so much that friendship and relationships have in common with romantic relationships.
Yes.
And this is one of those because you hear people talk about like dating specifically and romantic matchups. And the first thing you'll often hear is on paper, he or she is perfect. On paper, we have everything in common, but. And I think just those on paper characteristics often can be more of like achievements, where you went to school. But until you get into actual like energy, what do you like? What kind of a person are you? How do you react when things go wrong? Like, what do you do when your flight gets canceled?
It's very telling of somebody's character. Yeah.
Yes. That is when you can really say like, oh, when Rachel's flight gets canceled, she knows who to call. When Jeana's flight gets canceled, she lets Rachel make the phone calls.
Well, let me ask you this. My sister and I had lots of time for deep conversation on this trip. So one of the things we're talking about is, I think it's chemistry. It's a spark. It's just not a romantic spark.
Right.
But I said with certain friends in my life, when I met them, I had almost a knowing or like a sense of recognition. And I just was sure we're going to be friends.
Yep.
Like it arrived to me as just this is what it is. We just met and it will be a future friendship.
Yeah.
Has that happened to you?
Absolutely. No, there are certain people where you just feel on a cellular level.
Yes.
You're like, oh, we mesh. Something good is here.
Yes.
I felt like that when I met you. And I felt like that. I have another friend, I call her Felony Melanie. I love her so much, but I only have seen her a few times, and the first time I met her, I was just like, Melanie, we should be friends. And it was a similar thing. My best friend Mary Claire, the first time we met, she was just a Looney Tune, and I find her just hysterical. Yes, I think that there is definitely like, maybe it's like a soul connection, maybe it's an energy, maybe it's something that we can't see or understand. But it's there for sure.
And I feel like when I've heeded that, it's been correct.
Yes.
Like I've been able to line up the instinct with the outcome and say, I just had a sense about you. And sure enough, I knew nothing. Like it's like you sit down and you say hi and you're like, oh, that's my work husband.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I've had that happen too, where you're just like, I'm so comfortable with you immediately. And then we've stayed in touch many years since because like, the comfort was there, the shared sense of humor, like the way of operating, it just clicked.
And in a workplace too, you get shared hours quickly.
100%. Yes.
You're logging.
Like my friend Kirby that you've met. Like she walked into my office at Leo Burnett, and this was almost 20 years ago. And I was like, we're friends.
Yeah. We are friends.
I didn't tell her right away, but I was like, it's good to go.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're going to get our nails done on a Friday. Just you wait. Do you remember when you used to do that in agencies? I guess we should wrap this podcast up or we will be on it for 20 hours. It has gotten dark.
Yes.
It has gotten dark while we've been in here. All right, this has been an episode of The Connection Code, a thing we could talk about forever, and a podcast about friends, connections, and work, and everything in between. This is a production by Two Connections, Rachel Gillman Rischall, because we use two last names, and Jeana Anderson Cohen. You can follow us on Instagram. She's at Rachel Gillman Rischall, and I'm at Jeana Anderson Cohen, and on LinkedIn for the professional cuties by using our full names. And hey, if you want to drop us a DM and let us know that you've got a connection to our dream connection, or you want to be match made with a friend, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, Jeana.
Bye-bye.
Bye.